I'm Hesta Prynn, DJ and licensed therapist. This is Music is Therapy. Your session starts now. Today's guest is artist, author, entrepreneur, and activist Halim Flowers. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. Halim spent 22 years incarcerated, including 2 years in solitary confinement as a teenager after receiving 2 life sentences for a crime he didn't commit. But this episode is not really about prison. It's about freedom. How do you survive something that should destroy you and come out creating beauty? How do you refuse to become trapped inside your worst moment? There's something he says in this conversation. Halim says, the greatest demand in the world is emotional wellness. And I think he's right. Not success or fame or money and not even happiness. People just want to feel okay inside themselves. But people don't know how to heal. So they don't believe in redemption for themselves, and then not for anyone else. Halim calls this reciprocity of harm for harm. And I see this in my practice all the time, how we quickly reduce people to headlines or like the worst thing they've ever done, sometimes the worst thing that's ever been done to them. Most of all, we do this to ourselves. Most people are walking around emotionally imprisoned in some way, by shame or heartbreak, by fear. I've been really candid about that on this show. Sometimes by the version of themselves they got stuck in years ago. Last week, Vienna Ferrone came on here and she talked about origin wounds, how what happens to us in our childhood becomes our identity. And where we landed, and what Halim's life proves, is that the thing that can interrupt this and can heal us is creativity. Music, art, poetry, all of this. Halim talks about imagination as survival, how freestyle rap and literature and painting were tools that literally kept him alive. He talks about intergenerational wellness before intergenerational wealth. I love that. That blew my mind. And he talks about creativity not as decoration, but as regulation, healing. The monthly playlist is built around that exact idea, songs that help you feel something you haven't fully processed yet. Because I know that songs hold emotion for you until you're finally ready to feel them yourself, right? You listen to the record and it brings the feeling up and eventually out. And that's how you heal. If you want to learn how to do this, I'm doing a free live music connection therapy workshop on Zoom on Sunday, May 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to practice all of this together in real time. The link to sign up and to the playlist is in the show notes. But first, my conversation with Halim Flowers starts now. How are you? Your art looks amazing behind you.
I feel great. It's I just been on the road a lot. I can never complain about working, especially in an economy like this. So I'm excited to to record our conversation for your audience. We've had many conversations and we share core values, and we both share an insatiable desire to create art and to use art as therapy and an educational weapon of construction. And so I think this is a part of both our legacies to be able to provide, this high level conversation for an audience beyond just you and I.
Okay, let's start there. When did you realize that art or music, both in your case, was more than just expression? It was therapy. It was survival.
Art is so comprehensive to the human experience. And so for me, I didn't know that art was therapeutic probably till the last year. This is when I began to just, at 45, 7 years out of prison, no longer in a dangerous environment, getting used to being in a safe community, that I started to process, how the hell did I get through what I've been through in life? And then I started to realize it's always been, as a 6-year-old watching, animation, cartoons. And I think at the age of like 8, I bought my first rap tape, and we had tapes back then. It was Big Daddy Kane. And I just like, what was so,
nice.
What was so therapeutic to me with that now, looking back at it, was like, I did 2 years from the age of 17 to 19, solitary confinement, a lot of institutional lockdowns. When you're spending months inside the cell, no access to phone, email, shower, but being able to write those letters and then writing short stories and poetry and plays and movie scripts those were the things that was my imagination was keeping me alive and well. And so now at the age of 45, recently within the last years, when I realized the therapeutic nature of creativity, and then I started to come in contact with some neuroscience research about how, creativity, engagement with creativity impacts the brain in a therapeutic way. So it's been a long journey, but now I'm aware of it. And
Yeah, healed, hopefully.
yeah.
I love this. You basically like outline the entire arc pretty much of everything I really want to go into. So let's start where you ended. How do you manage your mind in solitary? We're in solitary for 2 years. I'm almost like afraid to even ask that question. Where does your mind go, and how do you survive it?
Imagination. I tell people, like, when you break down the word imagination, it's image nation. So when you are tapped into your imagination, and when you understand what the origins of the word genius, right? I encourage people to go look that up, the etymological understanding of the word genius is. And so it comes from in the days of Rome and Greece, um, the people believe a genie lived on your property, in your home or your estate. And this genie was able to convey some information to people that put them ahead of the curve. And so the origins of the word genius, it didn't come from the individual, right? It's something outside of the individual was able to tap into the individual, come through the individual, and people knew, like, damn, this is superhuman. Like, when they first heard Mike sing as a kid, like, where you get that voice from, right? And so, but Mike understood, like you see in the film and you read some of his articles, he speaks about like channeling, right?
Yeah, channeling.
So for me, my imagination, I was able to create these worlds in my head and use my pen and my pencil to write down the poetry, love letters, I would write short stories and movie scripts. And so my imagination was, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So every image in my mind is creating 1,000 words per millisecond. And I'm just trying to keep it up with my hand, just keep writing it, getting it out. And, but that was keeping me sane. But that ability to have that imagination, I didn't know at the time that the process of a genius is that something that was coming through me, and I was open to receive, right? Because I'm in solitude, right? And once you study the history of the cell in Buddhism, the cell is the path of enlightenment. They willingly go into the cell to grow.
Right. Right. That's a lesson, right? This idea you just explained that everyone can use, even when you not when you're in prison, but when you suffer with things, when you struggle with things, when you are just having your average day. It's like to remember to treat your body, mind, and spirit, I suppose, like the vessel. You want to create like a beautiful wine glass, not like a dirty cup, and then what will come. So I have to pause there because that's the question I'm sure I know this because you told me, but that's the question everybody wants to ask you.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest question, isn't it? What's the question I'm going to ask? You tell me what's the question.
How I landed from Mars? Yeah.
Well, yes, that's one way to put it, right? But for the lay person, here's how we say it. How do you survive what you've been through and end up on the other side, this gifted, commercially successful, emotionally progressive human who is thriving in every area of creativity, giving back in a way that I don't know anyone who gives back like you.
For me, what I went through is definitely, I like to say that my siblings, I was born in 1980, Washington, D.C. So I always like to say that, my siblings were rap, crack, and Reaganomics. So, because that give context to, what happened. So, growing up in the inner city, Washington, D.C., highest murder rate per capita in any city in the world, any city in the country at that time, highest incarceration rate of any city in the world at that time. and experiencing incarceration at the age of 16, getting 2 life sentences for something I didn't do, surviving, not just surviving, but alchemizing 22 years, the base conditions of 22 years of incarceration into the golden opportunities which you speak about today. And I like to describe myself as a cultural engineer / alchemist. And so how I was able to do it in layman's terms is that I was able to face the base conditions, meaning that prison is a very traumatic experience, especially when you enter it as a child under the age of 18 and you're being told that you will never go home in 2 lifetimes. I think I have the ability to not engage in cognitive dissonance, meaning like not dealing in fantasy. I could just face the reality of what I'm dealing with. Also, like having a mother's love, I think that's important because really, like, no one, when you have that mom that loves over you, no matter what you go through, it's important because you have the most powerfulest government in the world telling you that you're a menace to society, you're a super predator, and that you will never return to society again. But, having this academic ability that I had, and I think a lot of people think that, they make the assumption that if you're poor and you went to prison that you're illiterate, because statistics do show that governors of states decide how many prison beds they build based upon 3rd grade reading comprehension scores. But for me, I'm like an outlier because I had high test scores, took courses at Howard University when I was 11, took my pre-SATs when I was 11. So I think this, because it goes back to the question, like, how did you survive or how do you alchemize such a traumatic experience? And so having a mom who loved me unconditionally, who worked at the Library of Congress, having access to any copyrighting literature, any literature ever been copywritten, my mom could just go Xerox it, send it to me, having an insatiable desire to learn, being a child who, engaged in freestyle rapping for 5 years before prison. So it wasn't hard for me to access creative writing and performance art as a form of therapy to deal with this experience, and then having great mentors, having guys like when I went to prison who had already been locked up longer than I had been alive. These guys had already been in for 25, 30 years. And this was before the Clinton administration rescinded the Pell Grants for incarcerated people. So some of these guys had doctorate degrees, master's degrees. Wow. So it was like being around professors. And so for me, the unconditional love of a mother, access to literature is important, insatiable desire to learn, great mentorship, and then an insane work ethic that I still have today. These are the things that kept me fighting to get out and starting a publishing company and publishing 11 books and writing anybody I could write to tell them my story. And so once I got out, I liken it to the caterpillar. So the prison part was like the cocoon, and the 22 years just built my reserve because my wings are trying to escape the cocoon, but it's just building up strength through resistance. And so once I got an opportunity to get outside of the chrysalis, that's how the butterfly is able to fly. And so for me, definitely I go back to just saying, like, unconditional love is important. Access to beneficial information, mentorship, and a work ethic that, can intimidate most people. Because when I say the work ethic, I don't want people to think about the stuff behind me. I'm saying the stuff inside me. Like willing to...
Explain.
Yeah, because if I say work ethic, right, the most important work ethic is being able to day for day examine my emotional health, my mental health, my engage in the physical health, and then being able to do the work within to be just a genuinely great person. So when you meet people and you look at people in their eyes and you speak to people and you approach them with authenticity about things that most people would be ashamed of, right? And so when I engage with the people who I named in the world, they can sense like, damn, like you're not ashamed, you're being honest up front. And, you just genuinely like, I see something in your eyes when I see you. And whatever it is that they see and that they feel, it gives them, because it's the gift and the curse with that. The gift is that you do get to meet great people from all walks of life. The curse is now they start to unload on you things that they never shared with anyone.
Like when you bring pieces to hang on the walls.
Just they become aware of your art, and then they want to do a Zoom because you might not be in their country. And then you do the Zoom and you talk to them the first time, you're talking about the art and this and that and that. And you tell them your story. And you thinking they crying about the part of you being locked up. But then when you do meet them in person and you bring the piece and you walking and talking, and it's like, man, you helped me to deal with some stuff because I've been living in a prison because my uncle did this to me. My grandfather did this to me. Or I never wanted to be this. Like people see me as this venture capitalist. Like I'm really an artist, and they take you to a secret chamber on their property where they got these big, massive paintings. It's like, damn, like you paint? And it was like, I wanted to be like you. I wanted to be a painter, but my family's expectations made me be a banker or a venture capitalist or a hedge fund. Like I want to live like you through creativity. Yeah. And so I think like that's how I'm able to meet these people and form like genuine relationships because they feel that I'm giving them something that money can't buy. And that's the audacity to be,
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. The permission to be real. Now, I don't have the background you have, right? But I talk to people in a very real way. And for a lot of these folks, especially in like a work environment, it's very disarming. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they tell me a lot of stuff too. Mm-hmm. And I always think, well, that must be because I'm a therapist or because I like am maybe like the first spiritual person they ever like really talk to, Mm-hmm. But I think something about just being real about who you are is so unique. Especially you became you first and then you went out into the world. It seems like the culture now is to do it the opposite, like create the image, put it on social media, like show the results without the sort of caterpillar. Mm-hmm. Like everyone's expected to be a butterfly before they've had the moment to be a caterpillar. You were forced to really become the caterpillar mm-hmm. before you became the butterfly, and now you're just flying and everyone else can see it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? I don't think there's a question in here. I'm just sort of remarking on what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's like I tell everyone, like the greatest demand in the world is emotional wellness. Like people are engaging with technologies that connect them in ways to people, places, and things that we have never experienced in the human lived, the human lived experience, right? And now I think, we see that reflected top down, just a lack of even compassion and, and just in the way in which we choose to communicate how we feel from the highest levels. Being solution orientated, how can I do the work inside of myself to be the change that I want to see in others? And then how do I use these gifts of creativity that come through me, right? To how to deal with adversity in a healthy way and not to reciprocate harm for harm, right? And so people lack the ability to heal, and the easiest thing to do is harm. And what we do is we trap people to their worst moment because we don't know how to heal. We don't know how to do the work to heal. We don't believe in healing because we have a society that's reciprocity of harm for harm from top down. Right. And down up. And so as creatives or culture engineers, our task is how do we reverse engineer this reality of where people, they don't know how to love themselves. They don't know how to heal themselves. They don't believe in redemption in themselves and definitely not for others. And not only are they incarcerated to imprisoning people to their worst moment, but inside they're trapped to their worst moment, that they haven't never transcended to value themselves in a loving way.
Yes, that is a profound point, right? So my work, I try to use music to do that. And for people, not just creatives. It's like for people who love records, listen to the song, let it land on you, feel the feeling, grieve this, then visit with it. All this stuff, all this psychology stuff. How do you use it? Can you tell us, like, personally, or for folks listening to this, you're essentially like a symbol for freedom in all of the definitions of that word. And that's why people feel free to tell you their deepest, darkest moments where they probably get stuck, the things that they haven't processed. This is all making sense to me in the moment. Right. So how can people use creativity? Not people who are doing what you're doing, not people who identify as an artist, regular folks and people listening to the show.
Right. But I believe that people who are not creative can engage with creativity in any type of way, even if it's just looking at art. Right. Right. Even if it's just listening to. So last night I was with somebody and I introduced them to Fela Kuti. And they was like, who is that? Nice. I was like, what? He's like, man, like he's him. Like, and so we like listen to that. And so it made me feel better. Just every time I listened to him, before I even knew his story as a revolutionary and what the government took him through I was like, yo, this dude is like a Nigerian James Brown or something. I don't even know how to describe him, right? And so I think that is ways in which like people who are not creative is to first inform them that the reason why when you feel down and you like to put on the Grateful Dead, and how you like to be how you feel to be like, I'm a deadhead, like I'm going to church, right? That's what they say. I'm going to church.
Going to church. I said it last night. I went dancing. I said, this is my church. Yeah, right? Of course.
So you're understanding that the church is symbolic of some type of spiritual, emotional feeling where you receive a sermon and you feel better. And so when people would go see the Grateful Dead, they created a terminology. They were deadheads and they were going to church, right? And so music has that ability, right? When you see the movie Ferris Bueller Day Off, the rich son who has everything, once he goes to the MoMA and see the painting, he begins to weep, right? He has this transformative moment just looking at this painting that it's like a moment that liberates him from all of this burden that he's carrying from, my dad's money and all this, but he spends no time with me. And he's carrying that shame. Yes. But the painting, see, we saw that movie and that scene, but nobody explained to us, like, no, he had a moment because he engaged with creativity, right? And so I just encourage people who don't think that there are creative people, to just engage with creativity, whether it's, martial arts, culinary arts, visual arts, performance arts, literature, film, so tap into yourself, see what parts of creativity that you like to engage with and analyze how it makes you feel and lean in. Like Sheryl Sandberg say, lean in.
That's a great answer. Let me ask you a question. What's the right way? This is like a totally different question. What's the right way to look at a painting? As a civilian, what's the right way to look at a painting?
I would just say my way. I wouldn't say the right way, right? Because, Bruce Lee said that style is no style, And so, and I say that because people ask me, when I would go to these homogeneous locations like Palm Beach and Nantucket, who are only used to seeing people who look like me being like workers, low-wage workers. And I would go into these establishments and they would ask me like, what was I doing there? And I was like literally at the door, like the restaurant. What are you, like, pretty much, who are you? What are you doing here? I'm like, I'm an artist. Yeah. So they're like, oh, you're a rapper? I'm like, yeah, damn, I do rap, but I'm not here for that, right? And said, what type of art you do? I said, I just do art. And they was like, can I see it? I'm like, I paint, right? And so now they like, you paint houses? They're trying to figure out, because it's going to your question, what is the right way to look at art? And so when I was going to my inn at Nantucket that night, where I did some work at the gallery there, it was a black lady waiting, to let me into my room. And she said, I've been waiting for you to come all day. I read the article about you in the Nantucket newspaper, and I just couldn't wait to meet you. I said, oh, wow, great to meet you. And she was like, can I see images of the work you did today? So I showed her the images, and she said, wow, I didn't know black people could do stuff like this.
Wow.
And I was like, man, where you from? And she's like, I'm from Haiti. I was like, you never heard of Jean-Michel Basquiat? She was like, no. And I was like, wow. And so answering your question, what is the right way to look at art? I think for me, I describe my art as optical improvisation. And what that means is like, I want to create art that gives people the space to feel comfortable to improvise beyond the limitations that their optical, physical eyes see, because the physical eyes only see 1% of 99% of the things that are around us. And it's also, it's projections that come from the brain, the imagination, the imagination. But if you can improvise beyond those limitations, for that moment you engage with my art and see it with your heart and how it makes you feel, not what you see, but what do you feel, then I believe that is the best way for me to see art. It may not be the right way. It may not be the only way. It may be a bad way, right? But it is a way.
It sounds like what you're describing is almost, again, freedom. It's a tool to help assist in releasing oneself from the prison within. Mm-hmm. You brought up Basquiat. Tell us about your relationship, the meaning of Basquiat in your life.
Yeah, for me, I became aware of him through listening to Jay-Z rap about him when I was in prison. I didn't know what the hell Jay-Z was talking about, because Jay-Z always was like ahead of the culture. And so when he's saying Basquiat, like I'm hearing him say Banksy, just Basquiat, or, yellow Basquiat in my kitchen corner. Go ahead, lean on that blue, you own it.
You own it.
So I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Right? So I don't have Google in prison. So I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Basquiat, what is this, some champagne? My mind is, I didn't know who Banksy was at that time. And so I read an article in the Wall Street Journal about Basquiat, and it was no images of his work. It was just an image of him. And I was like, who the hell is this guy that, because I've been reading the Wall Street Journal for years. I never seen an article about a black painter. And he died of heroin when he was 27. Like, what the hell was he painting? Like, his paintings is selling for hundreds of, it blew my mind, right? And so I'm like, when I get out, I said, first, let me read the other articles about people. I went to the prison law library, looked his name up. It wasn't in encyclopedias. I said, when I get out, I really want to see this guy's work. And so when I got the opportunity to get out, and I was public speaking at the time, because I didn't paint until a year after getting out of prison. And so, but I would travel to different museums in cities where I would get paid to speak. And I would always search for his work. And I finally saw his work at the National Gallery in DC. And then I think at the Met or the MoMA in New York City. And, and started watching documentaries on him. So when COVID came, and I said, I want to start painting, right? Because I just received a grant from Agnes Gunn, may she rest in peace, from the Art for Justice Fund. And it was for spoken word. And so her fund was like, you could do with it what you want, because it's COVID. So I said, I'm going to invest it in paint. I'm going to paint the spoken word. And my first frame of reference was Basquiat, because I would go to these museums and get his books. And then I started watching his documentaries. So like John Coltrane and Miles Davis, their initial frame of reference for bebop was Charlie Parker. Like all of them, Dizzy, Miles, Coltrane, Monk, all of them are extensions of Charlie Parker, right? They wasn't copying Charlie Parker. They just was inspired by Charlie Parker. And then they took
Right.
it and they, Miles gives you, some kind of blue. You get Coltrane gives you Love Supreme. Like they all give you their theme, right? And for me,
Yes.
I don't think I would have had the comfortability to enter into expressing myself through visual language. So that's how I feel about Basquiat. Very grateful for the legacy he left behind, and we just this canon of African American creativity, just keeping it on, because before him it was Bob Thompson, and so before him it was somebody who probably was picking cotton or sugar on a plantation, but who came from a lineage of painters in Africa. Well, we didn't have the luxury to paint. We were on plantations. Then we got off plantations. We were trained porters and domestic workers. And so I feel like with Basquiat and myself, we got the luxury to maybe tap into something that we've been doing in our DNA for thousands of years back in Africa. And so that's how I feel about him. He's an ancestor.
Yeah, that you're continuing the legacy.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about artonomics, because I think that's kind of what you're kind of talking about now.
Right.
What problem are you trying to solve with artonomics, and tell us about it?
So with Artonomics First is an initiative under my studio practice to help creatives in the 21st century to protect, scale, and estate plan their intellectual property, making use of AI and blockchain technology. I think when you use the term AI in the creativity, people think they're talking about creating art. Like, no, you can use AI to research your contracts. It's like a paralegal to draft your, SWOT analysis, your 4Ps, production, price, placement, promotion, to do research into like demographics, galleries, museums, studios. I mean, you could use your AI to do so many different things that normally you wouldn't have access to that capability without money. Right?
Yeah.
You got to pay somebody to do this research. And so we had a recent example in the music industry where a rapper, allegedly Pooh Shiesty, held another rapper, record executive, Gucci Mane, at gunpoint to release him from his contract, right? Mm-hmm. And so whether this is true or not, we've had intergenerational experiences from Michael Jackson to Prince to Sam Cooke, all these different creatives who entered into contracts that were more harmful than helpful. It didn't allow them to protect their IP. It impacted how, if they was scaling it, they were not receiving the lion's share of the revenue from it. And they definitely didn't think about estate planning. And we can even see that today, how it's kind of like celebrated, like, oh, this artist, Lil Wayne, QC, like they sold their catalog for $100 million. And I'm like, well, we want to get away from that. We want to take the David Bowie path, whereas though we can create the Bowie bonds, right? What he did, took his catalog, a portion thereof, and leveraged it as an underwriting instrument for $500 million worth of bonds.
I didn't know this. What is this story?
The Bowie bonds.
Can you tell us what it is? Because I don't know.
Okay. So first of all, people can go to Artonomics on Instagram, and you can. This is on the page.
And we're going to link all of this in the show notes.
So this is free because there's free curriculum. Free curriculum.
Yeah, and it's a whole curriculum with different lessons and
so we got books, we have podcasts, we have social media. We give a lot of way of the content for free through social media. Yes. And so David Bowie connected with financiers and created the Bowie bonds. And so instead of selling his catalog, he used the revenue from a certain period of his catalog as underwriting bonds to receive, I think, $500 or $50 million right? Pounds, because he was from overseas,
Yeah, English,
right? And
right.
so, and after the 10 years, then he no longer had to share revenue with them. And so I love to use that example because when you sell your catalog like Muhammad Ali, like Lil Wayne, and the guys from QC, you no longer have equity in your catalog. Yeah, so right now, private equity hedge funds are buying catalogs from artists. Artists like Lil Wayne, boxers like Muhammad Ali. People are selling their catalogs, but instead of selling your catalog, you can leverage your catalog a certain period thereof for a certain period of time, use that to underwrite issuance of bonds like Davy Bowie did, receive the liquidity from the revenue from your catalog that it generates from your royalties, and then get it back full equity once the time period ends, right? And so that's called the Bowie bonds, David Bowie, right?
Okay.
Recent.
I'd never heard of that, but that's unbelievable.
And then recently,
and who's?
Go ahead, quick question.
Well, I was going to say who like the story that I've heard a million times is really Taylor Swift, how she fixed what happened, or she found the way to redo what happened to Prince, really. But I don't know why I haven't heard this story, but I suspect it's because there's not a lot of press and emphasis being placed on teaching artists how to ultimately control and own their work.
Yeah.
And not just sell it, take the money, and you build generational wealth through sort of like, money.
Right.
But to actually, own and value your own work in this way. And where does the crypto fit into that?
Yeah, I mean, the crypto is just another financial instrument. When you look at the blockchain, I take it more away from crypto and say blockchain, right?
And like, what's the difference? The crypto is the money piece of it, and the blockchain is the technology?
Yeah, the cryptocurrency is a form of currency that's created on the blockchain.
Okay, yes.
For creative, say if you had these paintings behind me. So say like if I sold this painting and I recorded it on a blockchain, and I put in the smart contract that anytime this painting is resold, that I get 10% in perpetuity, right? And so that's in the smart contract. It's a public ledger. For instance, like Keith Haring, his estate only benefits two causes: HIV/AIDS and New York City artists. I know his family personally, he didn't leave anything to them, right? But that's the way he wanted to set it up. Whereas though Jean-Michel Basquiat didn't get he overdosed, but he had a dad that was an accountant who set up his estate, and now his sisters run it, right? But back then they didn't have blockchain technology. So these paintings that's selling for hundreds of millions of dollars, that's not in the ownership of the state, his family gets nothing from it.
And they sort of have to abide by these rules, or like, how is that enforced?
The digital asset is easier to track because you sold it literally on a blockchain. But the physical part is just a smart contract that represents a physical object. So now if they do privately go sell it, then my estate will have to do, once they find out, a litigation.
Right.
Just like anything else, if you go buy a car and you still paying on the car, but then you go sell it to somebody that's going to ship it to Africa, and then you reported it stolen, but you sold it, right? And so they have to do their due diligence to figure that out,
Right. And that's this, when you have a collection or IP as valuable as you and some of these other artists you named, you have people who work in for the estate whose job it is, just like the musicians.
Now it's AI agents. So you can have your AI agent to scour the internet for anything that's within your IP. But a lot of people, especially artists, they're so turned off from AI because you say AI, they think you're talking about making music or making art. Like, no.
Right, it's going to write the play, all the things.
It's just like...
Are you doing this already, Halim? Like, are you already... Yeah. This is already happening?
It's a guy named Tommy Johnson. He has a website called Made CX. And so we're partnering with them to do that. right now. So we're going to engage in a pilot program with them. So that way we don't have to create it. They already have it. And it's like, for example, when you go to Made CX, he'll look at what is the value of the moonwalk as a trademark, right? And
Yeah.
if Michael Jackson would have done that now, that could have been trademarked and protected. So anybody who do that on social media, the AI agent would send them a cease and desist and give them options where they can license it.
Wow. That's unbelievable. So what changes when artists own their creativity?
I just think that we have less, artists like Van Gogh cutting their ears off, Kanye West going on his rants and, wanting to get out these contracts with, Adidas and Balenciaga and, we don't have to experience the symbol phase of Prince. Prince just gets to be Prince. And Van Gogh don't have to cut off his ear and Ernest Hemingway don't have to blow his brains out. Artists get to own and benefit in their lifetime, from their creativity, be better able to access the proper resources that they need to sustain themselves, their emotional, mental, physical, financial wellness, well-being. And I think that just imagine how many records we lost from Mike and Whitney, how many paintings we lost from Basquiat, how many live performers we lost from Hendrix and Charlie Parker, right? Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Elvis Presley, people that was just oppressed by these industries and frustrated by management exploiting them and just overworked. Jimi Hendrix was overworked. So he's just like using women and drugs and Medicaid because he's not really making money because management, accounting, agents.
How many more Led Zeppelin records might we have been listening to since 1980? That's mine.
Yeah.
Halim, you're describing again. It's the same through line. It's not. It's about freedom. It's every single thing you describe. Right. For me, I'm synthesizing this for listeners and for myself. Every single thing you describe is the same process. It's freeing people from the prisons that they're in, external, internal, and it all starts with that emotional, physical, mental wellness. It all goes back to this. You're such an amazing person. I'm so grateful to know you. And I wonder, how do you do all of these things? How do you take care of yourself, produce on this level? You have a new album that I'm linking to, all about therapy and self-expression. How are you running this business? You're a dad. You're doing it all with such consciousness and freeing so many people and creating such awesome art. And also traveling around and being on the cover of all these magazines and going to these openings and all the cool stuff I see on Instagram. How do you do it all?
It's a Japanese philosophy known as Ikigai, Ikigai, for those who listen and tap in. It means one's reason for being, and it has a quadrant and, four aspects to it. First is you do what you love to do. Second, you do what you're skilled at doing. Third is you do what's a demand for it. And fourth, you get compensated for it, And so I think going back to wellness, when you're doing what you love to do, you're in a space of love, right? And that's the ultimate expression of wellness, through gratitude. Secondly, repetition develops skills. That's your 10,000 hours. I think your love can take you through the moments when you're not as celebrated or compensated because you're just doing what you love to do and you're able to develop that mastery through the 10,000 hours. Even when no one's watching, because you love to do it. And when you try to do anything else, just don't feel right. Even though everybody else trying to tell you should do this and that. Third, when it's a demand for me, I feel like what I'm doing is wellness. And it's not art or creativity, it's wellness work. And I feel like it's an ever growing demand for wellness in new ways. Even though the terminology may have been oversaturated with, imagery of sound baths and yoga. But it's definitely it's a huge demand for people being, I know that just through the people I engage with. And lastly, the compensation part, I don't think you could take a, I'm a dope boy from the 80s, and if you're a dope boy from the 80s, I think like people, they look at the illegality of it and the immorality of it, which is true, but that's just the cocoon phase, right? The drug dealing, we evolved, you see the imagery of Nas shooting dice, opening up his casino, the biggest casino in the world. You see Jay-Z trying to, get the deal done for the casino in Times Square. So you just see the evolution of hip hop, storytelling, inner city, intellectual property, expanding into venture capital, private equity, hedge fund, family offices, philanthropy in so many different ways. And it all came from the block, and that's why one of the autonomics books is the blockchain, just showing people that, you don't have to be stuck to be a drug dealer. You can just sell product. That's all it is. And so for me, I'm able to do these things because I do what I love to do. I have probably 100,000 hours of practice at doing what I do. And, it's a demand for it. And engaging in self-enterprise, even though it's illegal and immoral, at the age of 12 in one of the most dangerous environments in the world, and then still continue that entrepreneurial spirit in prison, starting a publishing company, publishing 11 books. I'm just able to attract the conversation just through the inner work that I do, the inner work creates a value that people don't mind exchanging their Federal Reserve promissory notes, this fiat currency that has no intrinsic value, for, a form of creativity that's timeless and priceless, and that it connects with them viscerally, and it makes them feel better and inspires them. That's priceless. And so I think that, people, when they engage with what we do, and I always say we because it's a team, they can understand the difference between price and value, and they value what they experience.
Yes. And what you're giving people is priceless.
Right.
That's so powerful. I feel like you're a great teacher for me, truly. And I'm really glad that you came on here.
And I have a court date in like 2 hours. So one of my mentors who, just say his name because that keeps people alive. Mustafa Zulu received 3 life sentences, age of 16, the age of 19. They put him in solitary confinement in ADX, Colorado Federal Prison. And he stayed in solitary confinement from the age of 19 to 39.
Oh my God.
And he's been incarcerated now for 33 years. And today is his hearing. So hopefully, I wrote a letter for him. I may testify. And we just, trying to get him another chance as society, And
what time is the
2:30.
Okay, 2:30 Eastern?
Yeah, so a couple.
All right, I'm gonna give it some energy. Yeah. Halim, you're such a wealth of knowledge. Like, people must just want your time all the time. Like, is everyone just like blowing up your phone and text and calling you? Like, don't people just want to hang out with you all the time? I just want to listen to you talk all the time.
That's what I have booty for. And I'm just excited to continue to be used. So many great projects coming up. I'm just extremely blessed. And when they come, I'm excited to share some things in New York City. And
when are you coming to New York? When is that? Can you tell us? Like, when is the New York City?
May 15th.
May 15th. Oh my God! All right, I'm gonna come see you.
So I got a big meeting I'll talk to you about, and I'll share some things with you offline. But just thankful, very thankful because I'll end with this is that I never painted, drew, or sketched in prison in my life. And it was so many guys who are incredible artists, and none of them never believed that they could make a career out of this. And I just want to be a big part of changing that for so many people in prison, so many people in our communities who are phenomenal drawers, sketchers, painters, artists, but just don't have the curriculum and the lived experience and the mentorship to be able to make a living from what they love to do. And so, and that's all that really matters to me at this point. I've done everything I wanted to do. Everything I ever prayed for in life, I've done it as an individual. So I stand in a privileged position of philanthropy that doesn't require money. It just requires, being and living a lifestyle and creating a curriculum and institutions for others to be able to use their creativity to experience their dreams and their prayers. Yeah.
That's invaluable. Priceless. Yeah. Priceless. All right, my friend Halim, that's it. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to pray for your friend at 2:30. How about that?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And I'll see you. I'll see you when you're here. Okay. Thanks. Bye. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, leave a rating or a comment, help spread this message. The monthly playlist connected to this conversation is in the show notes. It's full of songs that help bring emotion to the surface, so you can actually process what's stuck underneath. You can also go ahead and email me, right? Tell me what you're dealing with: heartbreak, fear, grief, anxiety, shame, whatever it is, and I'll send you a song personally. musicistherapypod@gmail.com. Not because music magically fixes your life, but because sometimes the right song can help you finally feel the thing you've been trying not to feel. And if you want to go deeper, I'm doing a free live music connection therapy workshop on Zoom on Sunday, May 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern, where we'll actually practice this together in real time. The links to the playlist, the workshop, and my email are all up in the show notes. This is Music is Therapy. Thank you for listening. DJ Hester Prynn's Music is Therapy is a production of iHeart Podcasts. I'm your host, DJ Hester Prynn. Our executive producers are Marissa Bramwell and Jonathan Strickland. Our associate producer is Jonathan Klopp. Our marketing lead is Allison Cantor-Grabler. That's it.